Quick bit of FromSoftware trivia. Without Googling, can you remember if Dark Souls 3 came out before or after the amazing Bloodborne? Bloodborne was actually snuck in on the PlayStation 4 in 2015 and then followed up with Dark Souls 3 afterwards. I always imagined Bloodborne to be the more recent release. Now what do we get on the PlayStation 5 with Dark Souls 3? Well, it's 1080, but it is 60 frames per second pegged, which is great news. You do see a little bit of granulation on microscopic details if this is blown up onto a full television. Here's our Heavenly Father, the Elden Ring. This video is about the changes that were implemented with Elden to make it the game it is today, and whether sort of older Dark Souls games, particularly the latter, are worth looking at now. This video is going to be called After Elden, which does sound a little bit like a posh mint, but it is something I want to talk about because Dark Souls 3 was a very crowded release for me, and then Sekiro came out and I just got very obsessed with that game, and of course a mass amount of Souls-likes were then released. Nier, The Surge 2, they were just everywhere. I think it's time for a well-deserved revisit of this game. Can really feel those 60 frames per second, and if you're a big fan of Sekiro, you'll know that they put an update in to boost the frame rates on that game compared to the base level PlayStation 4s, and you do get a very crisp 4K resolution. The 1080 is the only annoying thing about this backwards compatibility, but it still feels incredible. One of the first things that immediately concerned me was that there's no actual jump button. With early Souls games, and reminder, Lies of P has this same system, you would have to sprint and then implement a clicking of the stick or maybe circle, and you do a sort of elongated, very difficult to work with, semi-impractical jump. It's nothing like the Elden Ring system, which is very malleable, allocated them. You can always do moves on the way down, and it almost feels like something you'd see in any other third-person RPG, think Dragon's Dogma. It wasn't something I proactively missed, and I think that The Lies of P should be in that conversation. That game ignored that mechanic, and it feels stronger for it. Also a system where you need to go back to a central hub to actually level your character, which can be a bit laborious, and I didn't mind it because you can dovetail it in with a lot of other tasks like going to see the blacksmith or even talking to other NPCs that are in this arena. Dark Souls 3 is my second favourite Souls game of all time, right behind Dark Souls 1, and I feel that this was not given enough attention due to the massive amount of releases around at its time, and really didn't get focused on the channel as an individual IP. So now's my chance to sort of really dig down and see if this game genuinely still holds up. So didn't finish it. I managed to get through Bloodborne, but this I think I did about 30% of, so the revisit's been quite an eye-opener in a number of different directions. One of the first things that impressed me was the aesthetic and how sort of dark and gothic the game is, also against Bloodborne, which is one of the most dark and gothic Souls games ever made. Sinister vibes in this game are massive. All of the enemies have a very macabre angle to them. It goes down to the weapons they're wielding, like the hoods, the lanterns, even the structures and the gothic-like churches and village layouts. This is so much more of a horror game than Dark Souls 1 and 2, I feel. Is the Dark Souls lore in any way connected with the Elden Ring world? No, not at all. And I keep talking about Elden Ring like it's the fourth Dark Souls game or something. No, we are going to see something else under the Dark Souls banner and completely separate to anything Elden. I just do briefly want to cover the controls on Dark Souls games, and particularly this one. Having to hold something with both hands, make sure your shield and sword are off, and then using the L buttons as opposed to the R2 and L2, and then getting it all back on again in time to take a hit is quite a lot of work. Also, with Bloodborne being such a strong taste in my mouth from finishing that game, I really wasn't expecting this one to have like jump scares or really good atmospheres or loads of like spooky interiors. My memory of that isn't too clear, but man, this thing takes you right through some seriously crazy scary huts. its loot drop system is particularly harsh, especially on cosmetic or armor drops. I had loads more stuff than this on my first playthrough. I remember when I was up here I had the butcher's like serrated axe. So some of this drop mechanic is seriously randomized. That does strongly affect the way the game is played through. You might land a really good drop from something or manage to get a really good set early doors. That was not the case with this playthrough. So strictly offline with all of this, so no invasions, none of that malarkey, but the game does sort of play around with you and give you an NPC invader, which is quite funny. Obviously kick my ass. But briefly going back to that no jump, having to travel back to level up, and maybe a slight more bit of convolution on the user experience, none of it's really worked against me loving this game again. And if you've got it in your library and you probably just dipped a toe in, maybe got obsessed with Bloodborne or Sekiro took your eye off the ball, then you're going to have a lot of fun going back to this. And it's not going to disappoint you on a performance level either. I was very concerned that it was going to be a bit smudgy, you know, and frames were going to jump around because there has been no official PlayStation 5 SSD update or anything like that. That might be something in the roadmap for From going forward. There are also some people out there who have played Elden Ring for the first time, and that's their entry point to FromSoftware's back catalogue, and this is another great place to go back to. I will say it's damn difficult though. Notice on my HUD I don't have any range or magic spells going yet. Obviously it's a brawler build, but Elden introduces magic and mayhem what felt like a little bit earlier. I completely forgot about this rat as well, it scared the absolute life out of me. Also got that clang on the wall thing. Some of you might not remember that or not come across it in Elden, but if you're in a corridor or close quarters or near some stone, you won't do a full swing. You'll clang off the wall and do no damage to the enemy in front of you. However, the same does not apply to the enemies who are swinging at you with 16-foot scythes. They go through anything. There's also something else that we don't have that was predominant in Elden Ring, and this was mainly due to it being an open world map system and this being a little bit more linear, but it is of course torrent. As mentioned, because of the design of Dark Souls 3, a traversal mechanic or animal isn't largely missed, but it also does make you think how big a jump Elden Ring is really with the traditional gameplay model we saw in their Dark Souls games Sekiro and Bloodborne. Is there anything I don't like about the game? Well, no. And playing Lies of P sort of put me in the mindset of having a traditional sort of Souls format. That semi-linear system works really well in the Lies of P, and of course it works incredibly well here. These were the guys that laid down the foundations for loads of games like that. Dark Souls 3, the Game of the Year edition, the bog standard, that's on Amazon at around £15, but the huge amount of DLC that came with this game means it is a massive like 44 quid one that's got all of that additional content. I never tried any of it and I'm seriously considering looking at it now. So if you've never played Elden Ring, what the hell are you doing? If you have, fear not. Dark Souls 3 is a stone cold classic. Go out there and grab it. I know in the comments, so many of my subscribers are going to be like, I've had it for 7 years, it's on the shelf, get it off the shelf. Have been Couch Coop. We'll see you down there.